What's up? What's up?
Yo,
It's the Divide Podcast episode. I don't know episode. We at the
it's one of them.
where we at? Oh, actually, I ain't gonna tell you where we at. I'm gonna leave it out. But, man, I'm feeling disciplined today. I'm feeling disciplined. No pun intended. So you got to be on your grind. I don't really believe you until you at least like 2 weeks into the gym.
I'm back.
Huh?
I'm back. Getting back to it.
No.
It might take a little bit to really get back to the routine.
No, I'm not saying you got to be like, I know your routine. You don't have to like get back to your routine. I'm saying like actually like checking your location and seeing you in the gym. Like 2 weeks. I give you about 2 weeks and then I believe you.
We'll see.
See, that's what I'm saying. That part. When people say we'll see, you don't end up doing it.
Again, we'll see, bruh. It's been a little bit. Got to give me some grace. Just a little bit.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I'm even talking about discipline. But I think discipline in the aspect of like discipline. Like, what does discipline look like in the aspect of being the bride to Christ? Like I think one thing for me has been like, if I've been under attack a lot lately. I think obviously we know with the decisions I'm trying to make, and the things that are happening. So I know with that, the enemy trying to get me off track and stuff like that. But I think like even in the bride, like you said, like the grace that comes with it, with discipline. But like, what does discipline look like within the church? Any thoughts?
What discipline looks like in the church.
Mm-hmm. And obviously not within the four walls, but just like the body. The actual church, meaning people who walking down the street right now, in the grocery store, like as the church. What does discipline look like?
You got different types of discipline.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have practical disciplines in terms of like the actions that you do, and when it comes to, I don't know, making God a priority in your life, whether that's, reading scripture or the time that you spend in his presence daily, worship and everything like that. But then also, I think you have discipline in the sense of like how much discipline or how much are you willing to do the things that you don't want to do when it seems like the hardest to do it,
Yeah, I think discipline is easy to do when it's something you want to do or something that fits within your schedule.
Yeah.
But when it comes to doing something that doesn't fit into your schedule or something that you don't enjoy doing, I think that's when we can see if you really have discipline or not.
Yeah. And I think that's something where I was like, for me personally, I guess we'll get real for a little bit. But recently, it's like my discipline has just not been there. I don't know. It's like, and it's not even really because of external reasons, like schedule or anything like that. I feel like, those are always like the good excuses.
Yeah.
Where there's always something, but really for no good reason, rather than like it feels like at times I just literally can't make myself do the things I know I should to stay disciplined. So yeah, I think honestly that's in times like this is where you find the discipline that matters, or where you can begin to train it at least. So as far as it like being revealed now, I'm really struggling or trying to figure out like how do I get to the point to where like I can learn how to be more disciplined, where I can where I can do the things when it feels like the hardest to do. Like I don't know, for a lot of the stuff, like just even the simple stuff, like even just getting in the word or, praying for an extended amount of time seems dang near impossible. But at the same time, like the other half of my brain is like, that's really no excuse for any of it, because like it still needs to be done regardless. So I don't know, that's just kind of where I'm at with it.
No, I feel you. I think like I think it has been me, I feel like I've gotten to a routine of praying in the morning, right? But the reading the word part has been very difficult. And doesn't the word discipline have, am I tripping? Does it have disciple in the word discipline?
Yeah.
Okay.
It does.
Okay. So what is a disciple? And I'm not talking about in like a spiritual sense. Like just in general, like what is a disciple? I feel like that's...
Well, in the book that I was reading, great book, by the way, by stop the ball. I was reading Practicing the Way by John Mark.
Yeah. Did you finish that yet?
No.
Okay.
Again, discipline. But that's one of the things like he talks about. It's kind of like what the whole book is about, pretty much.
Yeah.
But I know he was, in the simplest way to paraphrase it, since I don't have the book on me right now, and he's basically like saying a disciple, especially in the biblical sense, like the disciples of Jesus, are somebody who goes and literally copies, the person in front of them to a T. They walk where they walk, eat what they eat, and sleep where they sleep, right? And is basically sitting there at all times of the day, taking in and trying to basically be a exact copy of what's in front of them.
Okay. So and this might sound like, maybe the word's not cliche, but like, if you can't be a disciple of Christ first, then how can you be disciplined in anything? But like, if we're being technical, like based on what you were just saying, like, I think the first step to being disciplined in anything is being disciplined in our walk with the Lord. Because I feel like, the part of the verse where it says the Lord will give you the desires of your heart, like the first part of that is seeking him. Like those who are seeking him, he will give them the desires. That's the first part of the verse. So I feel like if we have desires to be disciplined in other areas, right? If it's working out, if it's, me being more disciplined on helping my wife whenever she needs things, or, it might be different for you. I think the first thing is working on being a disciple and copying to the T, like we were saying, on what Christ has done. And I think through that is another way of seeking him. And through seeking him, he can give us the desires of our heart. And that's kind of where I've been at recently, is just like the constant seeking him, but also in my seeking, being real. Not giving these short answers, not, okay, Lord, thank you, or do this, but like being real honest with him about like where I'm at in my lack of discipline. I think that too. Cause I was watching something and I was talking about just being truly honest and vulnerable with the Lord. But also I think in Psalms talks about where David talks about how important it is to talk out loud, like say these things, don't just have them in your head. I can't remember what Psalms this is where you're saying, where it was in his heart. It was in his heart and he just kept it there. And it was to the point where like it was rotting him because it was just staying and he wasn't speaking on it. He wasn't confessing these things. So I feel like if we're not confessing these things that we're struggling with, it stays here, and usually we can't win this battle if it stays up here. And I think that's why it's so important to confess that kind of stuff. So I know I'm kind of going to a different spot, but like I feel like that in somewhat connects to discipline, if that makes sense. I know that was a lot, but
it does. But I think also kind of when I've been thinking about it, for the past couple weeks in terms of like what I want my discipline to really look like is like I'm trying to get to the point now where it's like my discipline isn't really connected to anything that I gain from it. Right? I think it's easy to be disciplined in an area where you feel like, or where you know like there's a end result towards it, whether that's the gym, or even with the relationship with God, like you feel like you being more disciplined with God is going to lead you to other stuff, right? But I think that's always going to be short-lived when that's your motivation for it. But like I want to get to the point where you're disciplined, or where I'm disciplined in my relationship with God with nothing else attached to it. So it's kind of like, I mean, I don't know, maybe that's kind of like the hard part where it's like, for me, I'm constantly checking myself, right? I mean, I feel like every time, you know, something comes up, whether a good or a bad thing, like, it's easy to go to the Lord about it and, like, want to be in his face about it or his presence. But it's like, you know, can you sit there and figure out how to be more like Christ or be a disciple of him with the same urgency as, you know, if God came down here and said, like, there'd be nothing else to gain from, you know, walking with him. Like, I want to get to the point where, you know, Christ being the reward is reward enough, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of like, I don't know, I guess that's kind of where it's been a little harder in my mind to, I guess connect with the disciplines more, because when I take, like, I'm a very, you know, external motivation driven person. But now it's like constantly checking, like, dang, what's my motivation for it today? And it's like every time, like, I feel like, oh, well, this is why I'm doing this, or this is why I'm doing that, I'm like quick to kind of shut that down in my head, and so I can get to the point where I'm like, no, I'm doing it just because, you know, that's what I need to do.
Yeah, I feel like something that the Lord has been working on me with, and I think this goes into the discipline part, is being obedient. I think a part of being in discipline is being obedient, especially if we're talking about with our walk with the Lord. Like, being a disciple is, like you said, following to a T what you've seen another person do. So if we're looking at Jesus' life and how he lived it, we are being obedient and making decisions to replicate that. But I think going what you were saying, one important part, I feel like, is our love for him. Like, he says, those who love me will keep my commandments. He doesn't say he'll keep my commandments because he loves me. I mean, maybe that is the same thing, but I feel like the root of it is the love part. I'm not just doing it because it's pieces of, like, these are what's been put on a piece of paper, but it's because I have a love for the Father, I have a love for Christ, and because I have a love for Christ, I'm going to be obedient. Like, even, like, I think it's me and my dad were reading it. I want to say it's Philippians, but it might be Ephesians, and I know I'm using my phone for a microphone, so I can't really look it up at the moment. But it talks about where the Father wants us to be rooted and grounded in love. And I think to be disciplined when it comes to our walk with the Lord, there has to be love there. Because when we don't feel like doing something, the reason we do it when we don't feel like doing it is because we love him. And that goes back to, like, relationships and marriage, right? If I don't want to do something, but my wife asks me to do it, if I base it on what I want to do, I'm not going to do it. But because she's asked me to, or said, hey, babe, I want you to do this, because I love her, I'm going to do it, because it's sacrificing what I want. So love has to be there. Yeah, because then it's like...
But also, I don't know, I think that kind of gets, not to get too philosophical or anything, but, you know, when I break that down in my head, I'm like, dang, I feel like even a lot of things done in love, or the love that we experience as people, has a lot of selfish motivations behind it. I mean, take
But-
marriage love, for
Yeah.
example, too. Like, yeah, you might not want to do it in the moment, but you know, like, you doing it is going to make her feel better, which in turn is going to make you feel better in your relationship. You're always going to turn back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you, but I think like you even look at Jesus' decision to go on the cross. It wasn't because he felt like it's because he loved it. He loved us, and he got no benefit from it. He got no benefit from dying on the cross for us. But he understood that the reason why he was doing what he was doing was because out of his love for us. So I think it's less of, is love selfish? I think it's more of, what's our definition of love? Sorry. What's our definition of love?
You guys can go.
You're good. You're fine. You're fine. I think that's more of the question, is what is our definition of love? Because what we've seen in Scripture is sacrifice. That's the love we've seen. We haven't seen the love that feels. Like, love has been more of a decision, less a feeling.
Yeah.
So I think the society's definition of love is very screwed, which makes it very selfish, because it's humans, we're flesh. So it's like, I don't know, because Jesus saying that, saying if they love me, they'll keep my commandments. He's saying that, so it's like, it just shows you how important the love part is.
It is.
I feel like, I don't know, and I've been on that because I think maybe I told you about this, maybe I didn't, but I saw something and it was saying the gospel, obedience isn't the gospel. The gospel produces obedience, and the gospel is the love and sacrifice that Christ made on the cross and him raising again, which produces and makes us want to be obedient to him. If he never did what he did, the disciples never would have died for him. They're not going to die for someone who didn't make a miracle. Like, they saw it happen.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? I don't know. So I think that's just that's where I've been at, is really working on my relationship with him. Because when I am obedient, yeah, it makes me happy because I'm making my Father happy. If that somewhat, I think that goes into the discipline part. I don't know. But you got something you want to say?
No, I was just a question. I'm like, has that made you more disciplined?
You said what?
Has that made you more disciplined?
I think
a lot of times
it has.
It sounds like you can rationalize it, but then the action is completely different.
You know what it is? Has it made me more disciplined? Not as much. Where I'm at now, because I'm walking that out. What it has shown me is how selfish and how the lack of discipline I have. That's what it's done. That's what it's done. And so I've been having a lot of reflecting of, man, I'm this selfish. Man, I don't have discipline at all, because it's like being obedient to my Father out of love is not good enough for me. And that's the problem.
That's what I was getting
at. And that's the problem, is that, so I think realizing this is not, it's easy. Here's the thing. It's easy to do something on paper. Oh, I'm going to just do it. Check it off. All right. I read my Bible. Oh, I spend time in presence. But if I'm not, scratch the paper, if I'm not doing it because I just want to fall in love with my Father, that's where the sacrifice is, because it's no longer the paper. It's just, I'm doing this to fall more in love with him.
Exactly.
And that's what it's shown me, is, man, the lack of discipline and the more selfish I've been through my whole entire walk with the Lord. And so, Bryce Crawford had said something, because I watched the George Janko podcast with everybody on there. Mm-hmm. And he said how he was dealing with lust, dealing with different things, right? And I could resonate with that. And he said last year, he's like, Lord, I want to fall intimate. I want to just fall into intimacy with you, where I'm not just doing it because your word says so. I'm doing it because it makes you happy. Mm-hmm. And that, I really resonated with that, because I'm like, man, I don't. It's just like Matthew, was it 20 or 28:7, or in somewhere, not Matthew 28, but where it says in Matthew, where people will say, Lord, I did this in your name, I did that in your name, but I never knew you, right? I'm paraphrasing, but there wasn't a relationship there. I don't want to just do stuff and just do things because the piece on paper, the words on the paper say that. I want to do it because I have discipline in my relationship with you, and I'm willing to sacrifice how I feel and my preference to do what you called me to do. You know what I mean? And maybe that's what you said. That's where you're going. So I was wondering, cause your mind was going, so I was wondering what you were thinking. But yeah, that was it. So you said, like, discipline-wise, where in your life you say you feel like you have discipline?
I don't know. I feel like my whole, I guess, perception of discipline has been kind of skewed.
Hold on, let me make sure. Oh, I'm good.
What happened?
Make sure I'm with you. I'm like 2 seconds.
Yeah, we started those at different times.
Oh, we did?
I pressed
Okay,
live
cool.
and you-
All right, because I was like, it was, anyways, we're good.
Yeah.
All right, fine.
Are we good on time?
Okay,
7 minutes.
cool. What were you saying? You feel like you
Yeah.
said your view of discipline has been skewed. What were you saying?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like discipline before, for me, it's just been like how well I can stick to my routines. But like, as soon as my routines change, everything changes. So it's not really discipline then, is it?
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's for me. I think we said something the other day. We were joking about it, but it's real. It's about me like going to the gym or something like that. And I was like, man, if I can just get this, then like it would help me like be disciplined in all the areas.
Yeah.
But then the reality is that when I get that thing, something else is not going to be in place,
Right.
and I'm never going to be disciplined.
Exactly.
So, nah, I feel that. Yeah.
Which, like, I mean, I should know that because I feel like with other things, like, you find ways to be disciplined in them. Like, I don't know, when I was still playing basketball, right? Finding ways to get to the gym, right? Like, you just do it. It didn't really matter about, like, you know, whether, what time of the day it was. Like, if I'm busy in the morning, okay, I'm gonna go get shots up at night, you know, or vice versa. Back when I was, like, consistently lifting, like, it didn't matter, you know, what my schedule was for the day. Like, know for sure I'm gonna have to get a lift in sometime of the day, right? Like, you know, if I got a long night ahead of me, okay, well, I'll wake up earlier, you know, get a lift and stuff like that. But I think when it comes to, like, I don't know, for some reason when it comes to, like, spiritual things, it always feels like it has to be, like, a certain routine. I don't know, maybe because that's just kind of, like, what I'm used to how people, like, describe their walks or whatever, but, like,
it's very routine.
It's always, like, you know, wake up at this time, pray at this time, read the word at this time, watch a sermon between here and here, or on this day, on my drive to work, you know, I'll listen to a podcast on this, and then I'll also read this book. And I don't know, for me, like, my schedule's always so up in the air where it's like every time I feel like I don't have a consistent schedule, especially spiritually, I feel like everything's off, or I'm not being disciplined in it, or sometimes it feels like because, like, the routine has been thrown off, then I'm not able to complete any of the things that I'm supposed to spiritually, where, you know, that's not what it really means to have a relationship. Like you said, like, with your marriage or whatever, like, if Jay was, like, busy in the morning, you know, you wouldn't not talk to her for the rest of the day just because you didn't get to talk to her in the morning. Like, right. You got to find time when you have time. So I think that's real discipline.
Yeah, and so I found this verse. Don't worry. 1 Corinthians 9, verse 27. But I discipline my body and bring it to subjection, lest which I preach to others, I myself should become disqualified. I'm not really like that version. I'm about to find this version. Something else happened. Here we go. No, so the same verse as the NIV version. No, I strike a blow to my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. And I think, like you were saying, social media sometimes can make. I feel like social media can sometimes discourage you with your being disciplined, because like you see people like, oh, I do it at this time, and this is my POV of me, my day in a life, whatever, and it's just like bam, 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 bam. But it's like, okay, I hear you, but what about the days you wake up 15 minutes late? What about the days you don't get a lot of sleep? What about the day that one of those things you just did, you don't have time for? Is it still look that same? And probably not. So I think it's just, like you were saying, like finding the time. And when you find the time, invest into that time. I think that's where discipline can start to grow, is that when we invest in the time that we have. Because I feel like the enemy can get in our heads, like, you ain't spending no time. Oh, 10 minutes. 10 minutes, you up for this many hours, you only can get 10 minutes in. But as we invest that time with him, the desire to do it more often comes also, I feel. And if we're able to just make it, like the scripture says, like, make our bodies our slave, to the point where, like you're saying with basketball, like you got up earlier, okay? This is what my schedule's like tomorrow. Okay, cool, I'm gonna get up earlier. I'm gonna go to bed late. I'm coming home later. So I gotta get some shots up. It is what it is, despite what I got going on. And I think, again, it's because of your love for basketball. Why is she doing it?
Do it for the love of the game.
The love of the game. So that goes right back into what we were saying about what Jesus was saying in the Gospels. Like, those who love me keep my commandments. The love is going to be there. So I feel like for us to be a disciple, for us to be disciplined in our discipleship, the love for him has to be there. And the way we find the love and the way that we deepen in our love for him is by the more time we spend with him in his presence. And if that's 10 minutes, invest 10 minutes. If that's 5, you invest that 5. If you got 45, invest the 45. But whatever time you have, invest. Because as you invest that time, you've moved up in your love, or you've deepened in your love for him. Imagine you get 30 minutes on Saturday, you don't do nothing without the week. But if you get 10 minutes every single day, that's 50 minutes. And then you can do 30 on Saturday when you ain't got nothing to do. You know what I mean? So I think that's really what it would be. So I don't mean to wrap this up, but I think that's being disciplined is hard, bro. I told you that, like, when I realized that, it showed me the lack of discipline I have and how selfish I really am. And I was just like, dang, I was in a moment a couple days ago. I'm like, man, I really didn't do that because of this. So, yeah, I mean, that's really the thing we all really got right now. But it's just, grace is really important. So, constantly work on being a disciple, constantly working on being disciplined, but understanding that love comes first. Invest that time you have with the Lord, because that will start to grow your love for him, but also it will grow the desire you have to be disciplined, to make decisions that you don't want to make. So, yeah.